Hi, folks. Thank you all for joining us today. San Marcos Greenbelt Alliance's vision is to create an interconnected belt system of parks, green spaces that our community can hike, bike, and enjoy. Our green spaces must be conserved to protect our environment, wildlife, water quality, and to provide places for trails so people can get outside and enjoy nature's beauty. The members of the SMGA Conservation Committee work with the landowners, the elected officials, city and county staff members. The other organizations that we work with are Great Springs Project, Trust for Public Lands, and especially the San Marcos River Foundation to identify parcels of land for conservation and to work for their protection. We prepare detailed maps, research land characteristics, and support fundraising for land acquisition. Our dream for the last 24 years has been to create a continuous greenbelt loop around the city, down the San Marcos River and up the Blanco. We've worked with the City of San Marcos planners, senior city management, and many developers to impart our vision and inspire them to join our alliance. As you can see by the map, this dream of the green belt is almost complete. We hope this year that the Hays County will use funds from the 2020 bond election to purchase the last piece in this whole thing, the Elsick track. It's the largest remaining gap in the loop to conserve the land. It abuts the southern edge of the old Ranch Road 12 and spans almost over to Wonder World Drive, where it joins the Bowie tract. The SMGA trail builders have worked with the current owners to design trails for the Elsick tract and will build the trails once the agreement between all the parties is completed. The committee is still searching for and studying numerous other land parcels in the area. If you have any suggestions, any ideas, anything for land conservation, or you'd like to work with us, please let us know. And now the Stewardship Committee report from Scott Hines. I'm sorry.
Thank you, John. Scott Hines here, the other trail guy. Todd Durkis and myself lead the Stewardship Committee. As Susan said a little bit earlier, we've had an interesting year, 2021, because COVID was still a really big part of our lives. However, fortunately for a lot of people in San Marcos, they were able to get on the trails, and it seemed like have been used more than ever. Along with this, the trail crew has seen its volunteer numbers increase dramatically. I've been tasked with discussing some of the major accomplishments of the year, of our past year, and I'm sure if y'all have been out on the trails, you got to see the reroute of Blind Salamander and Spring Lake, the finished Matilda Bridge, and the new part of Blue Heron at the bottom next to the lime kiln entrance of Spring Lake. Our biggest projects, however, were in the middle of Spring Lake on a trail called Gray Fox, and we did a reroute there as well as an extension to Riffius in Lower Purgatory. I wanted to show a short video of Todd. Todd and I shot some video a few weeks back, and hopefully y'all will enjoy seeing some of this as well as some of the trail features. Anna?
Todd here, the trail guy, with my hand on a signpost that doesn't have the name on it yet, but it will say Acheron and Ripheus one of these days. We're working on changing all the signposts. More about that later. But this is at the intersection of Acheron, which goes to Matilda the Bridge, and Ripheus, which provides a second way back to the entrance of Lower Purgatory. In order to make that happen, we had to once again cross Purgatory Creek. So you can see ahead that we made sort of a hardened crossing. Let's take a closer look. Unlike Matilda, which is almost always passable even after a heavy rain, this one gets inundated once in a while, and that's why you can see all this debris here. But shortly after it's had a chance to dry, you've got another way to get to the top of the hill and up to the dam in Purgatory. But when we make something like this, we try to use the materials that are on hand. So we carved out a little bit of the mountain behind me, and we used it to build up a crossing. Then we hardened it with some of the cut stone that was up near the entrance that wasn't really performing as it should. And we used the nearby boulders and rocks to harden the sides. So it's made for a pretty stable crossing, and it's already stood the test of a few heavy downpours, and it's still here. So we're at the top of the new section of Ripheus that we created, which is an extension of Ripheus coming off the dam and headed towards the entrance. One of the reasons we created this particular path, this particular trail, is because it, first of all, replaces the old Dante that used to come up in that corridor where all the wash from the spillway is now, and it extends Ripheus, creates another way back to the entrance. We went through the woods, though, because we wanted a trail that had entrance to it and that would help the water stay off the trail. The old route that people had created on their own was just a straight line that went through some rocky terrain, wasn't very interesting, and wasn't really very good for the watershed. Added too much turbidity to the water. The route that we chose, as we just observed on our hike up, is performing quite well. It's losing water continuously, and it's a much more interesting and a shaded hike up to this point right here. So we've come back down Dante, and that brought us to Matilda, the bridge. Great bridge. For years we had wanted a crossing because the water that just fills this basin after a heavy rain was making it impossible for people to stay on the property and get into the rest of Lower Purgatory. So the obvious solution was to build some kind of bridge. We figured out where it needed to be, but getting a bridge done is a lot harder than you might think. Had to get it approved by the city and a lot of ideas and so on. Let's take a look, but I think the person to really tell you the details about this bridge is Sherwood Bishop. He was the lead engineer. He was the guy, the momentum behind this project once we started putting stuff on the ground. Let's hear from him.
Thanks for the introduction, Todd. In Dante's Purgatorio, Matilda is a woman who magically appears and carries Dante across the river Lethe so he can begin exploring the earthly paradise. Matilda Bridge didn't magically appear, though. She was constructed by dozens of volunteers over a period of almost 2 years. We built her with massive 6x6 timbers resting on limestone blocks, so we hope she'll last a long time. We added benches and lookouts where folks can meet and enjoy the view. The Leadership San Marcos class of 2020 raised funds for the materials, and the timbers were donated by McCoy's. As you can see, the crushed limestone surfaces of the approaching trails continues across Matilda, so runners and bikes won't slip in wet weather. If you visit Matilda, Make sure to check out the beautifully woven boulders that support the approaches to the bridge. SMGA, connecting our community to nature, one bridge at a time.
Todd Durkis here, and I wanted to let you know about Gray Fox, the final phase. It's a middle phase between one we had done, two sections that we did last year and the year before, and this middle section puts it all together into one great trail, at least the east end of Gray Fox. Behind me, right here in this section that's mottled with some sunlight, is the old route. Basically a Jeep track, pretty boring, goes up to a walk-in from Mimosa Circle, back down a very steep hill on the other side. That was problematic, a lot of erosion, a lot of cobbles, difficult for bikers and hikers alike. So we created this middle section. Closed this section off and created the middle section. Much more interesting, following the basic principles. We want to get people connected to nature, enjoy the scene, but we also want to make it sustainable and kind of like the trail almost made itself. So let's take a look. This trail is closed for restoration. Please use the new trail, arrow pointing that way. It's a good sign, and it worked. That, and of course, some handiwork with Joel digging a pretty good runoff for the water, and a lot of brush to stop people from using this trail. This is that section I mentioned earlier. It goes uphill from here, and it just gets steeper and steeper, very hard to walk and ride. So we brought down the end of the other section, the new section we created. It blends in with this trail again and connects with the lower segment that we had done a few years back. Right here, we were losing a lot of altitude, so we had to do some winding curves to get down the hill without just coming straight down and causing an erosion problem. But if you do it right, it actually adds extra distance and a lot of interest to the trail. And indeed, as you come down, you're looking in different directions and getting a different feel for the lay of the land. It works pretty well, actually. Crew did a good job.
Another huge accomplishment in 2021 was the start of a Saturday trail crew that works from 8 to 10 typically on Saturday mornings. Daniel Reinhuber heads up this work crew, and I'd like for him to speak for a few minutes about this. Daniel?
Hi, Scott. Thank you for having me. So I'm Daniel. For those of you who don't know me, I've been with SMGA for about a year and a half. In the second half of last year, I started organizing a Saturday trail crew, mostly because I had some friends that expressed interest in coming out and working, but couldn't make it on Thursdays. I think actually the picture that's currently on screen is from one of our Saturday crew meetings. Oh no, that was a Thursday. Sorry. Overall, it's been going really well, and we meet just about every Saturday, weather permitting, of course. We have about 8 or 9 regulars that make it out, I would say about twice a month. But the actual attendance varies from week to week, but is usually somewhere between 5 and 10 people. Most of the time, I try to use the crew to help subsidize the work that Thursday group does. But I've led a few one-off projects as well. The armoring of the sides of this crossing, for example, was one of the things that Saturday crew did. 2020 has been a little bit off to a rocky start just because the weather has made it pretty hard to meet consistently, but I'm looking forward. I think we're past the worst of the season and we can start kind of getting back into a regular rhythm, and I'm looking forward to like adding new people to the group and just continuing to do work and building that cohesion within the group. And that's all I have prepared to say. So,
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Finally, I wanted to send out some kudos to Curtis Seebeck and his team for putting out new placards, signed placards and signposts. Hopefully y'all have seen those. They've been doing work this past year on replacing the old signposts with this new material and actually new cedar posts as well. As far as this year goes, I want everybody to be on the lookout for the buoy track. We're opening new trails there soon, and that's at the end of Bishop Street, where it intersects with Lisa Lane. We're going to have an additional, well, it's over 2 miles of additional trail that'll be on that track, and all of it should be ready to walk by this summer sometime. And that's all I've got right now for stewardship. I'd like to hand it over to Diane Phelan to give us a report on volunteer hours. Diane?
Hey, everybody. I've been getting some texts about my pre-meeting video, and it was said recently that somebody put the smart in smartass. Well, I'll just say the rest of the word needs to be represented, and I alone must shoulder that burden. So this slide pretty much speaks for itself. You'll see the total hours over 3,000 and almost $100,000 of service value to the city. I think also what is kind of telling is that there were, let's see, well, how many hours there are relative to trail building. You can see all the other work that goes into running any nonprofit organization. And I think this sort of explains why we are talking about an employee with more frequency, if not urgency. So I want to thank all of our volunteers. And the last thing I'll say, that often volunteer hours are underreported. So I think that, you know, you can rest assured that we probably have more like 3,500 hours. Anyway, next will be Paul Murray to talk about, to give the treasurer's report.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Our expenses for 2021 were approximately $14,350. Our income was $14,600. Our beginning balance was $138,250. Our ending balance was $138,500. For this year, we have some kind of anticipated but unusual expenses that include $2,600 for an electric wheelbarrow. We've already received a very generous donation of $2,500 from STUCOM member Curtis Seebeck. So this addition to our tool inventory will barely affect our bottom line, but is expected to greatly expedite our trail work efforts. Another trail building expense expected this year is $3,100 for TrueGrid, which is a trail stabilization product you may have walked over a few times without realizing what it was called. And we've also budgeted, again, this is something new, but we hope this will expand our capabilities, $2,300 for trail design and construction training, which we hope to cover for 2 individuals. In my opinion, SMGA finances are sound, and SMGA should be able to continue our traditional activities as we have in the past for the foreseeable future. And that ends the treasurer's report. Thank you.
And now to introduce our featured speaker of the day is Diane Phelan.
So our featured speaker probably really does not need an introduction for a lot of us, but Melanie Howard has been the Habitat Conservation Plan Manager for 23 years. We're so honored to have her speak today on the HCP, and I probably speak for all of us when I say how incredibly fortunate we are to have Melanie working for our city. We so appreciate what she does, and for all of San Marcos, the river, the watershed. And it's my great honor to introduce Melanie.
Okay, I've pushed all the buttons, and now I'm not sharing what I want to share. You guys aren't seeing. Okay, does everybody see a cute little fish?
Oh, we see your screen, but not the fish.
Because I see the fish.
Melanie, if you could stop sharing and then restart sharing again, it might.
Okay. Bless you. Goodness. All right, share. Now do you see the fish?
Yes.
All
There's a
right.
fish.
And it says overview of the Edwards Aquifer, right? We're all on the same
Yes.
page here? Okay. Well, good afternoon, SMGA. Diane and the rest of you, thank you so much. This is really an exciting opportunity to share the EAHCP with some of my very, very, very favorite people in this community. My presentations, or presentations in general, probably frequently just relay information. So I have done something new, and I'm trying it on all of you. Knowing that people retain information better when it's portrayed in story form. So given the enjoyable format of this meeting, I'm going to start off with a simple story. And the story is, once there was a little fish. And the little fish lived in a world of warm, clear water with lots of food and good hiding places. What the little fish didn't know was that it was special. Its kind could only be found in 2 rivers in the entire world. So when too many straws were sucking from the aquifer that fed the springs that created its world, little fish was in danger. But luckily for little fish and so many other animals like him, there are federal laws that protect them. And people that love little fish's world employed those laws to ensure little fish always had a home. The people developed a plan with many ways to keep the springs flowing and make little fish's habitat better. So this plan, and the most important part of this plan, is to keep the springs flowing. And to do this, the Habitat Conservation Plan, or HCP, implements 4 programs to keep the springs flowing. For all who pump from the aquifer, a stage 5 was added to the critical period management program to obtain a higher reduction of pumping when certain triggers hit in the monitoring wells. For cities, economic incentives are offered in exchange for water conservation, and cities would then pledge to not pump at least half of the amount that they've conserved through this incentive program. For irrigators, they suspend their right to pump water for financial compensation, which is a really good economic decision for irrigators during dry periods, as instead of raising crops that may not make it, they might fail, they actually get paid for not raising crops that year. And for San Antonio water systems, they pledge to store water in the Carrizo Aquifer, which can be a good, They pledge to store water in the Carrizo Aquifer during wet years, and then use the water from the Carrizo instead of the Edwards Aquifer during dry periods. So and that was for flow protection, which again is just a critical part of the HCP, and we New Braunfels and San Marcos, we have benefited greatly from that portion of the HCP. But then there's another portion that looks at the riverine habitat, and it seeks to improve the quality of that habitat for listed species. And so the city of New Braunfels, Comal River, and of course, city of San Marcos, we implement measures that take place in the river, along the river, and throughout the watershed. Here listed before you are the funded measures in the HCP, and there are several unfunded measures as well that we implement. The first of these measures on the list is to restore and enhance Texas wild rice in the river from Spring Lake all the way down to I-35 to the wastewater treatment plant. The goal of the HCP is to achieve over 15,000 square meters of Texas wild rice. And on the map, you can see the blue polygons are the areas where TWR, Texas wild rice, has been established to date. As of 2021, over $1 million has been expended on labor, primarily labor. Everything is quite laborious to achieve this. And we have exceeded the TWR goals as far as planting and maintenance from Spring Lake Dam down to I-35. And I know all of you know this, you spend a lot of time in the river, and you can see the change from what the biota or the plants that we had before to Texas wild rice. And really what happened was, I would say we did a lot of planting up through 2016, and then we hit, and that's what we're finding with these macrophytes. You hit a certain amount of coverage, and it seems to be a trigger, and then they just keep going on their own with no help from us. And TWR has been quite successful. We are now working downstream. We have goals downstream of I-35, and we are levering HCP funding downstream. We have 2 federal grants. And so we're working those below Interstate 35. And those grants are going to allow us to extend Texas wild rice all the way down to close to the end of the critical habitat, which is close to the Blanco River. And so moving on to the next restoration measure in the HCP is control of non-native plant species. And in this map, what you were looking for are the maroon brown where it says elephant ear removal, and the orange non-native removal. Those are the polygons that exhibit the areas in which we've decreased the density of non-native plants and are on our way to eliminating them through monitored removal, followed by planting of a diversity of native species in and along the river being primarily the elephant ear. As of 2021, over 1.5 million has been spent to achieve the removal of hydrilla and hygrophila, the 2 largest invasive non-natives in the river. And then we have removed a myriad of other non-natives down to Cypress Island, which is just a bit above Rio Vista Dam. Elephant ears have been removed from up into the watershed, up Sink Creek. Elephant ears start because they just really need their feet wet. So they can start in much more shallow waters. And so near the treatment center, we've got an area there coming all the way down to I-35. It's been an initial removal. And I know that we don't see many of them very much anymore. And then we're working below I-35. And again, those grants are helping us extend the removal areas further downstream of elephant ears. And then another one of the biggies is our riparian restoration. Oh, and these numbers that are following the titles, that is the chapter and section in the HCP of where you can read about these measures, which I know all of you are just dying to dive in. And so I'm going to provide you a link later so you can take that and put it all up on your computer and have a really nice afternoon. So this is the riparian, and as portrayed by the green polygons. You can see the areas that we have done riparian restoration, which is installing a robust native riparian / water quality buffer, establishing it for the benefit of all the listed species and really for all the biota in the river. It provides a protected edge habitat for Texas wild rice. It prevents erosion, enhances groundwater, and which is really important to providing a base flow, which is critical to any river during drought. And as of 2021, over 500,000 has been spent to remove invasive riparian vegetation and plant a diversity of natives. This is one measure that's been a lot of fun because we've been able to involve volunteers. We have our contractor, Kudu Conservation, who will go through and remove, and then he monitors everything every year to remove regrowth as well. But then we've been able to hold a lot of volunteer work days so people can come in and do the planting themselves and watch the buffer change. And I like that aspect of the program because it creates buy-in in the community. And then again, for this measure, our efforts below I-35 are being funded by 2 federal grants, as well as HCP funding. And this all helps us move everything further downstream. And then these are conservation measures that are also funded, but they're more supportive type conservation measures. And you can see what each one does. The vegetation mat, of course, we push the mats that accumulate on the surface of the water. The reason we do that is because they will suffocate native plant stands, submerged plant stands. They cover them and they collect and they build up and they get deeper and deeper. And so we lose a lot of the work that we're doing. And we also do it because the recreationists just love it when we get rid of all that. Litter removal. I can't say enough about litter removal. And that is just the tip of the glacier of the money that is spent and the time that is spent. HCP does some work, we have a contractor, but the volunteer effort in this city removing litter is immense and never ending. So that's that. Bank stabilization, those are the, like Dog Beach, for example, that's our largest bank stabilization point. Over $1 million was spent on all the access points / bank stabilization. Our non-native species control, that's Atlas Environmental going in there and pole spearing the tilapia and the costomus. They also gather invasive snails, and they just finished their pole spearing 3-week pole spearing tournament, which really was a fantastic idea that Nick Menchaca had. And they had their big awards ceremony last night. I know some of you were there. Management of recreation in key areas, that's our conservation crew. For those of you who are aware of that program, university students, primarily during the summer, we train them about endangered species, the HCP projects, the sensitivity of the San Marcos River, and then they go out during the summer to the river users and they spread that education. And they also pick up litter because everybody has to do that. Household hazardous waste, $30,000 a year to keep hazardous waste off the recharge zone. And then impervious cover management, which is also a water quality measure. And we've spent almost $2 million on that so far. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've spent that. This is our Sesame Creek restoration project. We have gone out there. Sesame Creek is one of the 4 tributaries for the upper reach of the San Marcos River. And in my assessment, the money, the HCP funding that goes to projects like this is really the most important, because this is looking at stormwater runoff from around the city, and that's what goes into the river. And Sesame Creek, for example, is where the HCP is putting most of its funding. We're focusing on that watershed because of the amount of sedimentation it sends to the river and the consequential damage that is done to listed species habitat through sedimentation, which just dumps on the aquatic plant habitat. And I wanted to take this opportunity now to thank SMGA, thank the city and the Meadow Center for their partnership in the implementation of this project. The city is removing the suspended wastewater lines that are crossing Sesame Creek. We're cutting those and plugging them. The HCP is paying to stabilize Sesame Creek itself. And SMGA is partnering with the city to implement a federal grant, thank you Aspen Navarro, to restore native diversity to the Sesame Creek natural area. And then looking toward the future, we're talking about reaching out into the neighborhood with a program to replace residential invasive trees, ligustrum, chinaberry, Chinese tallow. And you can ask Paul later about the trail design that SMGA did. They've done a trail design. We're going to have another new section of trail out there coming soon. And so in summary, Our funding, what we expended to date on the HCP is almost $10 million. And by the end of this ITP, incidental take permit phase, which is 2028, we will have spent $13 million. And these are important funds that are fully and totally going to increase the resilience of the San Marcos River and the public's understanding of what the HCP is trying to accomplish. It doesn't go to anyone's salaries. It is just what's on the ground. And there's your link at the bottom, EA HCP calls in phase 1. So for all of you who are dying to read the HCP, there it is. And finally, I want to say that given the world that we live in today, I want to let everyone, to make sure everyone understands, these are not measures that were developed willy-nilly. Science and experience are solidly behind each of these measures that I've talked about today. They are individually and cohesively critical to the protection of the San Marcos River and its abundant biota. And Little Fish thanks you for supporting all of the EAHCP's activities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Melanie. You've been a wonderful friend to SMGA since our very beginning, and you're a wonderful asset to our community. And I'd like to point out that Melanie was also one of the co-founders of SMGA. I now call to order the 2022 annual business meeting for the purpose of electing new board members. I see that we have a quorum of our members attending, so we can proceed. SMGA has term limits for members of the board. After serving 2 consecutive 3-year terms, board members must leave the board for at least 1 year. 2 members are leaving this year after serving 2 3-year terms. Another board member is resigning to move out of state, and another resigned last year. Scott Hanais has a few parting words for the exiting board members. Scott?
Thank you, Sherwood. There's really not enough I can say about the 3 folks you see up on the screen there. The first guy I'll talk about is Joel Barks. He's our resident drug dealer, and he's just a phenomenal worker on the trail crew. He has worked extensively, not only in Texas, but in other states all across the United States with the Trail Tamers, a group out of Austin. He's been a long-term member of our trail crew and has been on the stewardship committee for quite some time now. Joel's one of the smartest guys I know, and if you've ever met Joel, I'm sure you appreciate his sense of humor as much as I do. Unfortunately, Joel's going to be moving to Massachusetts to be with his grandkids, and we'll only get a couple months of work out of him a year because he's going to be coming back down, hopefully a couple months a year to work with us and visit us here in Texas. We'll miss you, Joel, and look forward to seeing you back here in about another week or so. I do have a little parting gift for you from Wake the Dead. I don't know if you can see this, Joel. This is a filled out coffee card. So this is going to be coffee of your choice at WTD when you get back here. Thanks, Joel, for being such a wonderful part of our crew. The next person I'd like to acknowledge is Paul Murray. Many of y'all know Paul. He was the past stewardship committee chairperson, and he's our present treasurer. And Paul has been nothing short of
Okay, so had my.
For our organization. He's been a longtime trail crew member and has been a past Volunteer of the Year recipient. As has Joel, matter of fact, I didn't mention that. Sorry, Joel. Paul is our board pragmatist. He is the typical voice of reason and oftentimes dissent when some of us dreamers get out over our skis, and pulls us back in and helps us to be more grounded. Everybody needs a golden gopher like Paul. So Paul, we really appreciate all your contributions, and we look forward to having you around in other capacities for our organization. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge our president, Sherwood Bishop. There's so many things we can say about Sherwood. He was one of the founding members of SMGA in 1998. He's got all sorts of experience in conservation, fundraising, outreach, stewardship. He's been on all of the committees. He was the past chairman of the Parks Advisory Board and the Planning and Zoning Commission. So he really knows a lot about local politics and how things work and how to make things happen. 2 years ago, Sherwood was the recipient of the national award, the Cox Conserves Hero Award, which gave SMGA $50,000 for his work. He was really the brain and much of the brawn behind building the Matilda Bridge. And I think this will be a lasting legacy for Sherwood and to our organization. As a dreamer and visionary, Sherwood has brought many ideas to the table that have made our trail system a really special place that will soon surround our entire city. Sherwood has always pushed SMGA to be the best version of itself. And although he'll be stepping down as president, I'm sure Sherwood will be very involved in the next big thing we do. Thank you, Sherwood, for your leadership, your drive, and your inspiration. And now I will hand it back over to Sherwood.
Thank you, Scott. The SMGA Board of Directors are elected to staggered terms of office. Directors will be elected to fill positions 1 through 4. In addition, places 5 and 10 are vacant due to resignations of board members, and they'll be filled for the remainder of their terms. The board appointed a nominating committee that provided a slate of nominees for today's election, and Susan Hansen will introduce the nominees. Susan?
Thank you, Sherwood. It's an honor for me to introduce this year's slate of nominees for the SMGA board. If you've read their bios in the Loop, or if you know these individuals, I think you're going to be very impressed. But let me introduce you to them once more. Matt Lewis first. Matt has lived in San Marcos since he was a teenager, and he holds a degree in geography from Texas State. Among the many things he will bring to the SMGA board are 2 decades of experience in urban design and planning, both in the public and private sector. Through his company, Simple City Design, Matt is committed to creating human communities in ways that preserve the natural environment. Nationally recognized for his award-winning designs, Matt is considered an industry leader for his ability to turn fun and innovative engagement into a fiscally sustainable reality. Not surprisingly, Matt spends much of his free time outdoors, in the river, on the trails, or in the skate park. For more than 25 years, Lisa Pruitt has been a resident of San Marcos, where she raised her 4 children with her husband, Ron, and where she's grown and operated a successful landscape business. From 2013 to 2019, Lisa served on the San Marcos City Council, where she advocated city acquisition of green space and preservation of land to protect our aquifer and to create future trails and connectivity for our region. A former mayor pro tem, Lisa helped write and enact environmental protections for floodplains, riverbanks, and the aquifer, while preventing development on sensitive land. Her knowledge of policymaking and her decades of experience in landscape contouring and construction will be a real asset to the SMGA board. When not working, Lisa and Ron enjoy gardening, cooling off at the river, biking, and spending time with family. For more than 30 years, Greg Moore had a full-time medical practice in San Marcos, gaining a reputation as one of the city's most respected doctors. Though he continues to work with Christus Hospice San Marcos, Greg is now semi-retired and can be found out with the trail crew most Thursdays, hauling rocks or removing invasive species. Greg grew up sailing and camping in parks around Texas, and as the population in the hill country has grown, he's seen the need to preserve green spaces like those in San Marcos. Today, he also spends time working on his own property with an eye toward improving it for local wildlife. Greg has been involved in the San Marcos community in a number of ways, including as an assistant scoutmaster and as a member of the City Airport Commission, the San Marcos Education Foundation, and the board of the Upper San Marcos Watershed District. He continues to enjoy sailing and camping and hiking with his wife now that he's semi-retired. When Alan Holzgraf moved to San Marcos in 1984 to attend college, he developed lifelong friendships built around caving with the campus caving club, paddling the San Marcos River, and enjoying many of the area parks and green spaces. He also participated in river cleanups and went on many camping trips with the outdoor center on campus. Although he was an accounting major, Alan sees himself more as a biologist at heart than an accountant. While in college here, he worked for the campus aquatic biology department, at the U.S. Fish Hatchery on McCarty Lane, and at the Edwards Aquifer Research and Data Center. Alan's early career took him to Guam, but he continued to visit this area every chance he got. In 1995, he returned to Texas to continue and complete his career in San Antonio. Since last summer, he's been working with the SMGA trail crew. He remains eager to spend time and energy on continuing that wonderful relationship with San Marcos and the area that became so special to him in 1984. We also have on our slate of new officers. Well, they're not new because these folks have been on the board already. We're electing them to new terms. Born and raised in Austin, Eric Weeks developed a passion for nature while spending time outdoors as a Boy Scout. He earned a bachelor's degree in resource and environmental studies from Texas State and now works at the Discovery Center coordinator for the city of San Marcos, where he promotes native plants and land conservation and sustainability. As part of the Habitat Conservation Plan, Eric also manages the conservation crew to mitigate impacts of river recreation. Eric is passionate about environmental stewardship, particularly invasive plant management and native restoration. In this capacity, he's led the SMGA trail crew in the restoration of Sesame Creek and Shuley Canyon natural areas. When he's not working, Eric enjoys hiking, gardening, traveling, and spending time with his wife and 2 dogs. Finally, as communications manager for the Meadows Center for Water and the Environment at Texas State, Anna Huff is passionate in her public relations practice and committed to inspiring the next generation of environmental stewards. She received a Bachelor's of Science in Public Relations from Texas State University and has served as a board member and a member of the outreach committee for SMGA since 2016. There, she helps raise awareness about the important work SMGA does to keep greenways and trails accessible to the San Marcos community. Anna is indispensable to the board for her expertise in graphic design and electronic media, particularly when it comes to the layout of the loop. And now back to you, Sherwood.
Susan. We haven't received any other nominees or nominations online. So would anyone like to formally nominate this slate of fine upstanding people?
I'll nominate the entire slate as presented.
Thank you, Diane. And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. And Anna Huff will now post a window on your screen so you can vote. Voting is open to any current dues-paying member of SMGA. Just select the bullet next to your choice, and in a few minutes, Anna will post the results. Anna, what I'm seeing on the screen is, let's see, I didn't get a chance to vote. I'm not sure if everyone else did.
Okay, let me.
I didn't get a bullet next to mine.
Just went onto the screen that's showing results.
Okay.
Right.
I'm about to relaunch it.
Do we vote again?
Okay.
Yes, go ahead and vote again. Sorry, guys.
Okay, looks like everyone is voted now. And the results are unanimously in favor of electing this new slate. So congratulations to the new board members. What a great bunch of people. Okay. Now we've come to one of the more fun times, fun points of our together. It's the time when we award our 2 hiking stick awards. Each year we give 1 hiking stick each, hand carved by Kenneth Dees, to our volunteer of the year and to our community partner of the year. Generally, our winners don't realize if they've won until they're called up to receive the prize itself. This year, due to the continuing plague, we're forced to have our meetings online, so we've already awarded the prizes. However, we get to see a video of the winners receiving them. So here is the video.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Scott Heneyes, and I am the stewardship chairman along with Todd Durkis. We're here today to acknowledge some of the special volunteers and people in our community that make Trail Crew very special. And the first thing I'd like to do is to acknowledge all the volunteers, all of which aren't here today. We're here at Wake the Dead in the dungeon, and we've got about 15 people here, but our crew is much larger than that. So I know we're not great at gratitude. I know most of y'all come out to do trail work as an intrinsic reward, but I want to say thank you, and Todd joins me in doing that. The first award we're going to be giving is the Volunteer of the Year Award. For those of y'all that have heard that the trail crew is made up of riffraff and ne'er-do-wells, exactly. I want y'all to know that this group of people is comprised of all sorts of professionals. We've got doctors, we've got lawyers, we've got librarians, we've got tattoo artists, we've got geneticists, we've got the gamut as far as people go. And we'd love to have you come out on Thursday morning, and we also have a Saturday crew going from 8 to 10 on Saturdays now too. So come out and join us and make a difference in our community. The person we'd like to acknowledge today is a teacher, which is one of the noblest, in my opinion, of professions. She retired a few years ago after how many years? How many years of service?
Oh, Crockett for 23 years.
Crockett, I'm sorry. Crockett, 23 years. And after her retirement, she basically took on trail crew as her new full-time job. She is an avid cyclist, an avid hiker, an avid outdoors person, and we've loved having her on the trail crew because she points out all the maintenance issues that we need to take care of, and she's been a great scout for the new trail that we're actually building in Bowie, which is going to be an additional over 2 miles of trail. She's been great getting out there, doing a lot of scouting, and we really appreciate all the work that she's done. Not to mention, she's one of the bigger, she puts the smart in smart ass, let's just say. She is a very funny person. She's very fun to be around. She's got acerbic wit. We all enjoy being with her when she's out on the trail with us. And I guess without further ado, I'd like to acknowledge Monique Schur as our Volunteer of the Year. And if you could, Kenny, there's 2 sticks there on the wall. If you could grab the one that says Volunteer of the Year. So Monique, come on up.
Oh.
Did you want to say anything?
I missed the teaching, I mean, the spankings. No, but thank you very much. I was really surprised. Diane said it was going to be like free breakfast tacos this morning, so I showed up. No, but thank you very much. This means a lot because all you guys are a lot of fun to work with, and it's an important thing that we do, getting people out there in the trails and making our community healthy and happy, and conserving our land. So anyways, thank you very much. I appreciate this. It's a beautiful stick.
I would also like to acknowledge Kenneth Dees, one of our trail crew members. Come on up here, Kenneth. We need to acknowledge Kenneth for doing the wood burning and the carving on the sticks that actually came from the natural areas. So Kenneth, thank you so much for taking care of that. Yes, I will turn things over to Todd for the second part of the presentation.
Thank you, Scott, and congratulations, Monique. Well deserved, no doubt about it. There's another award that we give out every year, and it's just as important, and it means a lot to do this kind of thing because it takes a lot of support, it takes a lot of help to make what we do happen. We do what we do for a lot of reasons, as Scott was alluding to: recreation, health, private and public health, conserving the natural areas, our love of nature, and knowing that we're helping to get other people out there to enjoy the natural world. But we can't do it without support. And support comes in a lot of different ways. It comes from the city, other organizations, and so on. But a key element in the reason we do what we do is what Scott also kind of mentioned. It's just being connected to each other. That connection is community. And community is what keeps this place working. This town of San Marcos works because people care about and participate in community. One of the ways we do community is we come to Wake the Dead Coffee House afterwards, where we are right now, enjoying the camaraderie and the community you feel in this room, and that I guess you'll be able to sense even in the video. That community is something that doesn't just happen. It happens because people provide hospitality to make it happen, who care about creating a place, a space, a vibe that'll help us reach out and just connect with each other. The people who make that happen at Wake the Dead,
are Julie and Christina and Michael and Dana and all the people at Wake the Dead. We consider them a community partner in what we do because so much about who we are happens right here. It's not just beverage and food and that kind of sustenance. It's the sustenance of that hospitality, which is their hallmark. And we're very, very much appreciated. They've worked through the pandemic to keep things going. They've accommodated us. They allow us to call this room the dungeon, among other things. We have kind of a meeting space back off the parking lot. All that was accommodation, and it's all with that philosophy, that mentality of let's help them be who they are. So we appreciate that very much, and we would like to give you our Hiking Stick Community Partner Award, and we honor you as much as anybody can for the work you've done. Whether you meant to or not, you were a huge partnership in who we are, and thank you, thank you, thank you. And there's a mention of free tacos, is that? No. Just kidding. Anyway, so thank you very much. Why don't you come up here and let's give you the award. Now you can go hiking.
Sweet. That is beautiful.
And be a lot safer. You can fend off the enemies that are out there on trail, you know, grizzly bears and porcupine. Trail crew, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much.
And thank you all so much for what y'all do.
Yeah.
It's amazing around here, and thank y'all for supporting us here all the time. Thank y'all.
It's a real honor.
Yes.
It is a real honor and a privilege to have you guys come.
Yeah.
And just, you know, to meet here and to gather to like plan whatever it is you're planning. I'm always curious, you know, like what are they doing? I wonder, you know, I'm sure they're planning to take over the trail world, but it's all been like I've seen the progress over the years. The trails have been essential to my healing, and so I really appreciate it, guys.
They're beautiful. I was going out to the upper purgatory like before y'all had even like started out there. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's crazy to see how it looks now. It's just beautiful. It is so beautiful.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
Beautiful.
All righty.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
You betcha. So I had to, it was a bit of a ruse to get you here, to surprise you with that. But thanks to all our members. As we always say, we're powered by our members, our volunteers, and donations. Well, it turns out we're powered by a lot more than that, thus the Community Award. But thank you all very much. And I guess that's a wrap up of the awards portion of this program. So thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Monique and Wake the Dead, for your hard work and your support over the years. Thanks to all of you for joining us tonight and for your support over the last 2 decades. If you missed the members highlight video that was shown before the meeting began, you'll have another chance to watch it now. And I'll say, despite Diane's prickly persona in that video, she's really a real sweetheart to work with, at least as long as you keep working. If you'd like to see some other videos about SMGA, you can go to YouTube and just do a search for San Marcos Greenbelt Alliance. And that concludes the 2022 annual business meeting, and the annual meeting. And next year will be our 25th anniversary. So hopefully we'll meet in person, have lots of food. And meanwhile, we'll see you on the trails.
Hey, Danielle. So you started a Saturday crew, which is really convenient for people who have always had the excuse that they work during the week. How's that going for you?
It's going well. We have a pretty regular turnout at this point. Probably around like 11, 12 people that come on a weekly basis. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. And it helps because sometimes I lead my own project, sometimes I supplement the work that we do on Thursdays. And yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for starting the Saturday work group. I hope it continues to grow for you.
I hope so too.
Morning, Nick. You're one of the newer guys on the crew. If you were on a deserted island, which tool would you most want to have? Would it be a Picmatic, a McLeod, a shovel, or a Pulaski? So which tool would you like and why?
That's a tough choice because they all have their many great attributes.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna overthink it. I think a shovel would be the best tool to have, just so I can dig my own grave.
Oh, Nick, good choice. Sheila,
Yes, ma'am.
can you, we're on a timeline here. Can you work just a little bit faster? That would be great. Okay, so this is Brandon. He's one of our newer members. Hey, Brandon. So what's your favorite job on Trail Crew? Do you like to haul big, huge rocks to use as anchors? Do you like to grub out persimmon trees? Do you like to haul really heavy buckets of gravel? Which one is your favorite?
I like to grub persimmon trees.
Okay, well, great. Well, we've got a cactus here I want you to move. So if you can do that instead, that would be awesome. Thanks, Brandon. So Greg Moore, good morning.
Good morning.
What you doing there?
I'm clearing the trail.
Okay. It looks like you missed a spot, though. Can you get that, please?
This lawsuit against them.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. A little less talking and a lot more working. What is this, a volunteer group or something?
No.
All right, Ben, they're supposed to go off the trail. So, you know that we've got tools for that, right?
Yeah, what is that?
Okay, less talking and more working. Hey, Joel. So you're one of our more seasoned members and you work with a lot of different trail crews all over the place, right?
Yeah, it's I get to do this every week, but once in a while I like to go on those longer trips where we're going to New Mexico or Colorado.
Okay,
or
that's
West
great.
Texas.
So I guess you think you know just about everything, right?
I know more than you, Diane.
Okay, well, okay, but avoid, see this flag right here? You need to.
This one?
Yeah, oh, and you just stepped on it.
Oh,
okay,
sorry.
So you don't know everything, do you?
Yeah.
All right, you guys, so we didn't get to work on Trail Crew this morning because it was a little too cold, and I know you all are such hard workers. You really want to be out there shoveling and lifting rocks and doing all that really physical labor. So tell me, what is your favorite thing about being on Trail Crew?
Drinking coffee!
SMGA, building community one trail at a time. So this is the last job of the day. We're placing an anchor and Nick is picking that rock up and we're gonna put it here. But you know what? No, let's try over here. I think it would be more appropriate here. Well,
How about on your foot?
oh, don't tease me, bro. Ah! I like it. Hey,